It is not good, and some of it is wretched.
It's wonderful when one is influencing to the degree that I was. I hear myself.
Picture Detroit in 1998. The Opera House is packed wall to wall, rows of red velvet seats glowing under the lights, filled with dignitaries, artists, and producers, all gathered to honor the Queen of Soul. Yet behind the velvet curtain, the air is tight with tension. In her dressing room, Aretha Franklin sits completely still, regal, controlled, but unmistakably seething. The reason comes down to a single name printed on the program, one she never approved. Aretha closes her makeup case with a slow, deliberate click, every movement sharp with purpose. She looks straight at her assistant and says, each word carved in stone, "If he performs tonight, I'm leaving." That one sentence plunges the entire event into chaos. Staff scramble to restructure the show, panic spilling through the backstage corridors like a shockwave. Aretha never needed a microphone to command a room. Her silence, her stare, her presence alone could stop everything in its tracks. For decades, she kept quiet about inflated egos, quiet betrayals, and the politics simmering behind the scenes. But in her final years, the Queen began speaking the names aloud. And these were not petty disagreements. They were wounds that had never truly healed. And the first name on that list belonged to a woman long rumored to be reaching for her crown, Ray Charles. The duet that never happened again. In the mid-1970s, the atmosphere inside the studio crackled with excitement. A national audience was waiting. Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles, two titans of soul, were about to share a live duet that the network promised would be historic. Rehearsals had been a dream, warm, easy, filled with playful teasing and perfect harmonies. They blended like old friends. Producers whispered that the world was about to witness magic. But the moment the red light blinked on and the cameras went live, something changed. Ray, famous for his spontaneity, suddenly abandoned the arrangement they had practiced. He began stretching the song in every direction, dragging out bridges, layering unexpected riffs, bending the rhythm until it barely resembled what they'd rehearsed. What had been planned as a tight, elegant duet turned into a maze only he knew how to navigate. Aretha, always the consummate professional, scrambled to follow him, but the balance was gone. To the viewers at home, it might have looked fun, two legends riffing, improvising, playing off each other. But to Aretha, it was deliberate. When the cameras cut and the applause faded, Ray reportedly chuckled with the producers and said, "She's incredible, but she's not quick on her feet." Those words hit her harder than the performance itself. Aretha's entire life had been built on mastery, precision, control, command. To be mocked, on national television, by someone she trusted, wasn't just rude. It was a public wound. From that night on, she drew a line. She would never perform with Ray again. No tours, no TV specials, not even a quiet session behind closed doors. She never spoke about it to the press, but those close to her remembered exactly what she told them. "He tried to turn our duet into a solo, and me into the punchline." For Aretha, this wasn't just musical sabotage. It was betrayal. A man she once called family had turned her spotlight into his stunt. Beyoncé. The comment that sparked a royal feud. At the 2008 Grammy Awards, Beyoncé stepped onto the stage to introduce the legendary Tina Turner. Radiant and supremely confident, she declared, "Tina, the Queen." The audience erupted in applause. But somewhere across the country, another queen sat in absolute silence, Aretha Franklin. To most viewers, it was nothing more than a compliment. But to Aretha, the woman who had spent more than 40 years carving the title Queen of Soul into music history, that single line felt like a quiet challenge aimed directly at her throne. To Aretha, a crown wasn't a catchy label. It was a lifetime's worth of work, born from gospel, shaped through performances during the civil rights movement, and sealed by a voice no one had ever been able to surpass. So hearing that title passed to someone else, even in another genre, wasn't merely careless. It hurt. It felt like a silent slap. Within hours, Aretha released a rare public statement. She never used Beyoncé's name, but no one could misunderstand her meaning. She called the remark a cheap shot, a lapse in respect, words that sent shockwaves through the entire music world. Outsiders dismissed it as diva drama, but those who truly understood Aretha knew better. This wasn't about ego. It was about history. About a black woman who had fought for every inch of recognition in an industry that had tried, time and time again, to quiet voices like hers. And now a younger star, one who had grown up admiring her, was unintentionally rewriting the narrative, without acknowledging the foundation laid long before. From that moment on, Aretha drew her line in the sand. She avoided events where Beyoncé headlined, refused to share stages, declined joint photos, and behind closed doors, she didn't sugarcoat a thing. Friends recalled her describing Beyoncé as a talented girl who forgot to curtsy. But the story didn't end there. The next name on Aretha's list wasn't a rival. It was someone who once called her a friend. Until the night he humiliated her on live television. And the next name on her list? He didn't play tricks, he wielded words like blades. Luther Vandross. The studio clash that turned ugly. The studio showdown that exploded far beyond the soundboard and the early 1980s, Aretha Franklin was preparing for a powerful return. The Queen of Soul was ready to reclaim her crown, and Clive Davis had already selected the man who would help shape her comeback, Luther Vandross. Young, dazzlingly talented, and rising fast as both a singer and producer, Luther had a reputation for lush arrangements and an ear that caught every flaw. At first, it looked like a perfect match. Aretha delivered raw fire. Luther brought meticulous polish. But the harmony didn't last. Almost immediately, friction brewed, small things at first, murmured disagreements, repeated takes, tiny notes that carried too much weight. Luther chased perfection like oxygen. Aretha chased emotion like truth. Their worlds collided. Then came the night everything snapped. During a tense late-night session, after yet another disagreement over phrasing, Luther reportedly muttered, "Stop oversinging." The room froze. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was icy. Aretha stood up slowly, fixed him with a stare sharpened by decades of mastery, and said, "Nobody tells the Queen how to reign." Then she walked out, leaving the studio, the musicians, and Luther in stunned stillness. The album Jump to It did get made, and it became a hit. A big one. But beneath the glossy production, the process was a war zone. Every harmony masked a clash. Every vocal layer covered a disagreement. They finished the music, but the partnership? Dead on arrival. They never worked together again. And though Aretha maintained elegance in public, she never pretended the experience was pleasant. Privately, she said, "He made good music, but he made it hell to make." To outsiders, it might have looked like the usual creative tension between two perfectionists. But to Aretha, it went deeper. It was about respect, something she refused to bargain with. And yet, even that bitter clash was mild compared to what came next. Because the next artist didn't challenge her voice, her craft, or her authority, he tried to erase her legacy with a single sentence. Keith Richards, the insult heard round the world. In 2007, he sat down for what was meant to be a celebratory Rolling Stone interview, a stroll through decades of rock history. But when the conversation drifted to modern soul, Keith casually dropped a line that silenced even his most loyal fans. "Soul died with Otis Redding," he said. "Aretha's still around, but it's not the same." Many dismissed it as an aging rocker waxing nostalgic. But to Aretha Franklin, those words cut like a blade. It felt like an attempt to erase her entirely, a dismissal of a career built on brilliance, grit, and a cultural force that reshaped American music. And what stung even deeper was that it came from someone who had witnessed her rise, someone who had watched her voice redefine the boundaries of soul. Aretha wasn't about to let it pass. In a rare radio interview shortly after, she responded with that unmistakable blend of grace and sting. "Some people confuse loud guitars with depth. Bless his heart." The line exploded across the media. But behind that polished jab, her anger was real. She felt reduced, belittled, dismissed by a man whose legacy had grown alongside hers, often buoyed by the very musical revolution she helped create. After all, she had outlasted the Rolling Stones, outcharted them, outperformed them. She had more Grammys, more cultural weight, and a throne cemented by decades of truth and talent. And yet Keith had tried to shrink all of that to a footnote beneath a legend gone for 40 years. Those close to her say something changed that day. She drew a line that was never crossed again. Mentions of the Stones were banned backstage. She rejected co-headlining invitations without hesitation. She turned down award shows where Richards was being honored. She never shared a stage with him again, never even spoke his name aloud. Because to Aretha, legacy wasn't a joke, or a soundbite, or something handed out casually. Legacy was sacred, and she had fought too hard for hers to let anyone rewrite it. But the next artist on her list didn't merely question her legacy. She turned it into a spectacle, one the Queen would never forget. Dionne Warwick, the funeral drama that reignited old flames. By 2017, Aretha Franklin was guarding her energy like a dwindling flame. Her health was slipping, her strength unpredictable. She had begun choosing which battles were still worth fighting. And then, out of nowhere, an old wound was ripped open, a wound she'd quietly carried for years. It went back to Whitney Houston's funeral in 2012. In the middle of a moment that should have been solemn, dignified, untouchable, Dionne Warwick made a casual remark that hit Aretha like a slap wrapped in silk. She told the press that Aretha had been expected to sing but simply didn't show up. What she never said, what she conveniently left out, was the truth. Aretha had been unable to walk that day. Her feet were painfully swollen. Her body was exhausted. Her heart was breaking. She grieved Whitney like family, but grief had trapped her at home. To the public, Dionne's comment was a footnote in a tragic event. But to Aretha, it was a crack in her honor, a public suggestion that she'd flaked on Whitney, that she'd abandoned her duty, that her loyalty wavered. And Aretha, even at her gentlest, was not a woman who took hits to her character lightly. She stayed silent at first. Let the years pass. Let the dust settle. But time didn't soften the memory, it sharpened it. And in 2017, she finally struck back. She sent the Associated Press a 5-page statement, unfiltered, unwavering, and crafted like a closing argument. She accused Dionne of spreading lies, stirring drama at a sacred moment, and twisting the truth into a spectacle. There was no diplomacy, no courtesy, no show business niceties. Just Aretha, reclaiming her name. And then came the line that froze the entire industry in place. Dionne knows what she did. She didn't explain it. She didn't expand on it. She didn't need to. It was a velvet dagger thrust straight into the heart of their decades-long tension. Those cool stares backstage, the clipped exchanges, the polite but pointed remarks at tribute events. The feud, once subtle, was now carved in stone. Aretha ended the matter with the finality of a slammed door. She wasn't interested in apologies. She wasn't interested in reconciliation. For her, the chapter was closed. And yet, Dionne wasn't the only name she carried on her list. The next person who crossed her didn't do it in a church or at a funeral. He did it in the one place you never challenged the Queen of Soul, Detroit. Eminem, the local boy who showed no love. Aretha Franklin didn't just live in Detroit, she embodied it. The city's churches, street corners, record stores, and late-night soul clubs lived inside her voice. She poured herself into the place that made her: charity performances, community work, mentoring young talent. Her roots ran so deep they felt like part of Detroit's foundation. So when a kid from 8 Mile, Eminem, suddenly became the biggest name Detroit had produced in decades, Aretha expected at least a flicker of acknowledgement. A shout-out. A tribute. A sample. Something to show that the city's newest star recognized the Queen who had opened the doors he now walked through. But the acknowledgement never came. Album after album, Eminem saluted his heroes, hip-hop icons, rock legends, Detroit pioneers. He named everyone from Dr. Dre to 50 Cent to Kid Rock. But not once did he speak Aretha's name. To fans, it seemed like nothing. But to Aretha, it felt like erasure, like the lineage she had built with sweat, brilliance, and unbreakable will had been cut from a story. People close to her still talk about a private dinner where the subject of Eminem's rise came up. Aretha reportedly leaned back, almost amused, and murmured, "He knows who I am. He just chose not to care." Later, when a reporter asked her thoughts on his music, she didn't bother dressing her answer up. She let one cold word fall: noise. There was no dramatic feud, no public back and forth. Just a silent frost that settled between them and never thawed. When Aretha offered her blessing, it carried weight. But when she withdrew it, when she fell silent, that silence echoed louder than anger. Yet her final disappointment didn't come from a rapper or a rock star. It came from a man with a piano, a charming grin, and a reputation for winning over every room he walked into. And unlike Eminem, he didn't ignore her, he did something worse. Billy Joel, the duet that died before it ever lived. Aretha Franklin had admired Billy Joel from afar long before their worlds crossed. She respected his craft, the way he could make a piano weep or roar, and the reverence he always seemed to carry for the giants who came before him. Among the newer generation of male singer-songwriters, he was one of the few she believed truly understood legacy. When whispers of a joint concert began circulating in the early 2000s, a night celebrating piano-driven soul and pop, Aretha felt a rare spark of curiosity. Two icons. Two pianos. One stage. It sounded like history waiting to be written. She agreed to attend the first rehearsal, expecting a quiet sense of synergy, maybe even magic. But from the opening notes, something was off. Billy was warm, yes, but too casual, too loose, too ready to treat the moment like a backstage hangout. And then came the comment that ruined everything. During a short break, he joked that she should relax, pour herself a shot of whiskey, and lighten the mood. For anyone else, it might have been a harmless attempt at humor. But Aretha didn't drink, ever. She had built an empire on precision, discipline, and a presence that commanded respect the moment she stepped into a room. His suggestion wasn't just clumsy, it was condescension disguised as charm. Aretha didn't argue, didn't scold, didn't offer a single word. She simply rose, gathered her things, and walked out, leaving only the soft thud of a piano lid closing behind her. Days later, a trusted friend asked what went wrong. Aretha sighed, almost with pity, and said, "He plays like a poet, but he talks like a fool." The concert vanished from existence. No announcements, no explanations, just a quiet burial of an idea that could have been monumental. And from then on, Billy Joel's name never crossed her lips again. He was written out, erased, done. Because to Aretha, respect wasn't optional. It was the rhythm beneath everything, her voice, her career, her life. And once that rhythm faltered, there was no returning to the song. For decades, she let the music speak for her. The first woman in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the voice behind Respect, Natural Woman, Chain of Fools. But behind every thunderous note were stories she kept locked away, conflicts, disappointments, moments when even the Queen had to protect her crown. And at 76, with time closing in and the truth pressing on her chest, she finally chose to say the names out loud. Not out of spite, but transparency. Because even a legend can be wounded. Even a queen knows what it feels like to be burned. The Queen is gone, but the echo of her truth still lingers. For more than 50 years, Aretha Franklin stood at the heart of American music like a living monument. Her voice wasn't just sound, it was a force, a compass, a declaration. Presidents paused for her. Civil rights leaders leaned on her. Entire generations shaped their memories around the songs she carried in her chest like scripture. But while the world saw the crowns, the stages, the ovations, Aretha carried something heavier in the shadows. The quiet wars she fought to protect her place in a world that was never built for a woman like her. A black woman. A powerful woman. A woman who demanded, and deserved, respect. In her later years, when she finally allowed herself to speak openly, the names she mentioned, Beyoncé, Ray Charles, Luther Vandross, Keith Richards, Dionne Warwick, Eminem, Billy Joel, didn't form a list of grudges. They formed a roadmap of the wounds she had collected along her journey. Each one marked a moment when someone underestimated her, dismissed her, or tried to reshape a legacy she had bled for. Her issue with Beyoncé was never about rivalry or envy. Aretha didn't compete, she reigned. What bruised her was the ease with which a title she spent a lifetime defending, the Queen, could be tossed around without care. She didn't crave the crown, she embodied it, and she expected others to honor its weight. Ray Charles left a deeper scar. Their duet could have been historic, but when he changed the performance and mocked her afterward, he turned a moment of artistry into a personal humiliation. That wound sank beneath her music and stayed there, untouched, unspoken. With Luther Vandross, the blow came from the studio, a battlefield where both believed their instincts were gospel. His criticism of her oversinging wasn't just a creative disagreement. To her, it was a knife aimed at the soul of her craft. Aretha didn't sing to follow rules. She sang because that was where her truth lived. Keith Richards' comment was different. Public, sharp, dismissive. When he claimed soul died with Otis Redding and brushed Aretha aside, he wasn't giving an opinion, he was rewriting history. And rewriting history meant erasing her. For a woman who carried the genre on her back, that was unforgivable. Dionne Warwick touched a much older, more fragile wound. When she implied that Aretha had neglected Whitney Houston's funeral, she struck at Aretha's loyalty, something sacred to her. Dionne's remark wasn't just incorrect, it was cruel. Aretha had stayed home out of pain, not disregard. And once she felt wronged in grief, forgiveness was never an option. Her feelings toward Eminem were quieter, but no less real. Detroit ran through her veins. She carried the city before anyone else did, its fight, its grit, its voice. So when he became its global symbol and never once acknowledged her, it felt like an omission that carried intent. A silence that spoke volumes. And then there was Billy Joel. The most unexpected name, yet the one that revealed the simplest truth: respect is non-negotiable. His casual joke about taking a shot of whiskey might have been innocent to him, but to Aretha, who had never relied on a drink to fuel her presence, it was careless, small, and disrespectful. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply walked away, and with that, the collaboration ended before it began. Taken together, these stories weren't spiteful recollections. They were pieces of a larger reality. Aretha had spent her life surviving an industry that applauded her on stage but rarely protected her behind the scenes. She didn't cling to these memories out of bitterness. She carried them because the world often erased the struggles of women who looked like her. The battles she fought in silence were as much a part of her legacy as her music. When she finally spoke in her 70s, she didn't do it to embarrass anyone or reopen old wounds. She did it because truth is a form of freedom. For the first time, she let the world see the bruises beneath the brilliance. She set the record straight, not with anger, but with the calm certainty of a woman who had earned every inch of her throne. In the end, Aretha Franklin didn't diminish her legacy by revealing these truths. She completed it. She showed us the full portrait, not just the queen on stage, but the woman who fought, endured, and held her head high through decades of unseen battles. Her voice may no longer fill rooms in real time, but its echo lives on, clear, powerful, uncompromising. A reminder that respect isn't something you receive, it's something you claim. And she claimed it, in life, in music, and in every truth she finally chose to speak.